So this is the LP86, the body roll drift car. So let's check it out and decide if you should get one. All right, so first we're going to start with the build and we'll move on to driving impressions. So from the outside working in, this is the Pandora AE86 Coupe. It's probably the less popular of the two versions. Everyone seems to prefer the three-door hatch version. I like them both. So this is the Pandora Coupe. It's running our one-piece cage and our ducted intercooler up front. I did paint the front bumper separately and glue that in place. This is the one-piece rear, and I just masked off the bumper. And then we also did some window mold paint from the outside. I did have a little bit of paint bleed through, so there's a little bit of fogging on the front windshield, which I might polish up later, but it's good enough for now. And you can see the setup. So wheels, these are 6mm offset. That's pretty much the perfect offset for this car. You get all the body roll and no body rub. So works well on the track. The body height is set to match the chassis height, and we'll get into that in a minute here on the rest of the build. So we've got the body off so we can see it underneath. You can already see some wheel and tire marks there from its first track session. So we'll flip it over, and I've just used aluminum tape there to protect the body in case I have to retape the magnets. The magnets are held on with 3M double-sided tape, and then you can see our one-piece cage there. I also put a little bit of aluminum tape on the wheel arches in case there was any rub, but none so far, so that's in pretty good shape. And then you can see our one-piece cage there. So this particular one, I decided to use a little bit of hardware. So there's two M2 bolts there, and then just this double-sided taped snap-in-place bracket. And that's the body. All right, let's move on to the chassis. All right, so let's start out front and work our way back. So we've got, maybe the first noticeable thing, you can see this gorgeous titanium hardware. That's from RC Supremacy. He set us up with this chassis and that hardware. So nice little sizzle to the otherwise plain Jane setup here. So up front, working our way back, again, 6mm offset, inch down wheels. Those work perfectly to get you a lot of steering angle. There's nothing modded up here. That's just stock angle at full lock. All right. And let's go on to the parts. All right, so for the servo, you'll see I'm running the AGFRC A50BHL servo. That's a low profile servo, which you'll need on this chassis. And then I actually did not use the servo saver that D-Like includes. I just didn't like it. So look closely here and you'll see how I sort of adapted the hardware to run that servo and servo saver. There's actually two bolts, one facing up and one facing down, and those are tightened down really well on the small bracket, maintaining the stock steering geometry. So I also, to make sure that this servo arm was at the right height relative to the knuckles, I did add a couple of 2mm spacers there under the servo plate. So that's the front end. Let's work our way further back. So another AGFRC item, the V3 gyro, which I run on my comp car, and a leftover Spectrum receiver. Back here is where things get a little bit different. So I actually designed and printed these TPU elastomers or springs, and I've been experimenting with that because I don't like the idea of just, I've seen a lot of people mod with like mini T springs and other brackets. I don't like to have the roll undampened, and if you're just running springs with no way to slow that energy down, the chassis tends to wobble. The TPU springs, they're actually kind of leaf springs, or you can see a pair of them. They do a good job of centering the chassis, but also dampen that roll rate, so you're not just sort of bouncing and shaking around the track. So that's something I'm working on that's unique to this car. Running the Gens Ace 4,000 mile pack, that's pretty much my default. That's the 5mm bullets, and let's work our way further back. So Outback, keeping this build economical, we just reused one of our brushless MST motors and ESCs from the ready-to-run cars using the stock pinion, stock spur, and I just designed and printed up this little ESC mounting plate. And then you can see I've run the motor wires forward, down, and under the rear axle, so it pops out here under the ESC, and it leaves a really nice clean wiring. One of the important things on this type of car where you have a body roll is to make sure that your wires aren't causing any sort of binding. We want to be able to get that chassis to go back to center. And so you can see it does a nice job of that. Again, 6mm offset out back gives you plenty of clearance on most of the stock bodies. And again, you can see some of that titanium hardware. So let's talk about how this thing drives. So we also threw this on our corner scales, and as you imagine, it's pretty light. This is not really a hopped up version except for maybe some titanium hardware. That might save you a few grams here or there, but that's really just for some pop of color. All in, we're talking 1,155 grams, so that's battery and body included. So it's super light and really simple to build. All right, so driving impressions. A little bit about me to understand my perspective. I've got a lot of RC. I manufacture things like wheels, chassis, and other parts. And I'm really into the scale side of RC, which is one of the reasons I'm attracted to drift cars. And I've been competing now for a couple years. I have an RDX that I compete with that I really like. It's easy to drive. You can throw it in a corner and angle. There's almost, you can do no wrong with it. And I've got hundreds, if not thousands of hours of drift time under my belt. So what does this drive like? Well, it's more realistic in that you can't just be willy-nilly, just throw this in a corner super aggressively and hope that, all the counter steer is going to get you out of trouble. If you drive this smoothly and realistically, it's really rewarding. And just watching it do its thing through the track, watching the body roll in action, it's really rewarding. I love how scale it looks in that aspect, and I can't wait to take more video of it. I just don't get a lot of video of myself driving, and I don't think, maybe there's one other LP86 on my local track right now that's out there consistently. I don't believe I've taken any video of it. But yeah, it's easy to drive, and it's easy to set up since there's really not much to set up. Maybe things like the tightness of your ball diff. But I found it really easy to get used to. I think 2 or 3 laps and I was already hitting zones with it. And I jumped in front of some of the trains at my local group, and those guys, there's a lot of really good drivers. And I liked holding them up a little bit as the lead car because this is not the fastest thing out there. Some of those guys have really high-end builds that are really well-tuned. But it was fun jumping on the door when I could. It was fun leading trains and sort of blocking them at every instance that I could. But that's not really the intent of this. It's not out there to go win comps. This is just a car that's fun and inexpensive and sort of a leftovers build for me. So we'll be using this outside sometimes, and maybe we'll do a class at our track for LP86, maybe run an older style body and only this chassis. So anyway, that's the D-Like LP86. So the $1 million question, would I recommend the LP86 as your only drift car? Probably not. I think I would recommend, the MST Max 2.5 as a ready to run. Just get you on the track sooner. But if this is maybe your second or third drift car and you've got some leftover parts, in this case, the ESC and motor, this is a fun departure from trying to chase, fast laps and big angle and really aggressive comp setups. This is fun. It's inexpensive. You're talking, under $150 for the chassis, basically a free motor and ESC. And if you don't have these, go to your drift track. There's gonna be plenty of guys that will have these sitting around their toolboxes. You could pick them up for really inexpensive. So we're talking a kit that you could probably build with some donated and inexpensive parts for under $300 or even well under $300. And this will be my outside car as well because it's got a little bit more ground clearance. And I'm not worried if it gets a little dirty or worn out because this isn't the car I compete with. I use an RDX for that. So only drift car, probably not. Second or third, sure. And that body roll just looks so good on the track. Unfortunately, I don't get a lot of video of my own driving because I'm driving. But there's plenty of other videos showing the body roll in action, and it looks so good on the track. Everybody loves it. They love when you get on their door and this thing is cranked on over and you can see that rolling through the corners. All right, guys, let me know what you think about the LP86, and we'll leave links in the description below for some of the products like the Cage or intercooler. And then maybe when I'm done testing these, we'll add those to the website as well, because the stock car comes with foam there, and that foam does a pretty poor job of returning the car to center. All right, so I'm James. Thanks for watching, and if you have any other comments, leave them down below. Thanks.